Hello, everyone. Welcome to the 8th anniversary Neurodiversity Pride Day. This is a global celebration by and for neurodivergent people. On this day, we honor the beauty of every neurodivergent mind. It's a day to embrace who we are, celebrate our unique strengths, and stand together in pride, solidarity, and self-acceptance. And I'm Jonathan from Hong Kong. I'm one of the coordinators of Neurodiversity Pride Day in Hong Kong. And my partner Pei Yan is with me today because and we aim to bring neurodiversity Prime Day to Hong Kong, getting community interested in neurodiversity and work together to create a new inclusive community. And today we are so happy to be joined by Kay Sargent of Hope. Kay is an experienced interior designer, and she is one of the greatest minds of neo-inclusive workplace design. And she's not only a thought leader, she's also an author. In March, she published a book, Designing Neo-Inclusive Workplace. It aims to be one of the leading books for us to understand why we need to embrace neurodiversity in the workplace design. Hey, thank you very much for joining us today. I know it's 8:30 a.m. At your side.
Well, I'm always happy to get up and talk about this topic. So thank you for inviting me to join you.
Yes, it's our pleasure to have you. But first of all, could you let us know about more about who you are,
Yeah.
your background, and what sparked your interest in neo-inclusive design?
Yeah, sure. So I am a practicing interior designer for over 40 years. I am based in Washington, D.C., but I practice all over the world. We have 27 offices, including one in Hong Kong. And so we work with large corporate clients that have millions of square feet all over the world, and we help them to think about not only what's impacting them now, but what's going to be impacting them in the future. And about 8 years ago, I was in a meeting when a client asked as we were walking out the door, he said, "Oh, yeah, by the way, how do you design space for someone that is ADHD?" And I'm the mother of five. I've designed all kinds of spaces, everything from education to government to corporate, you name it. And I had a pretty good answer to that, but I didn't have a great answer. And so I went back, the team at HOK decided we really wanted to think about this more deeply. And we started to do a bunch of research, and we found this huge gap in information about what to do in the built environment. And so we really started to do a bunch of research. And now, 8 or 9 years later, we have done multiple case studies, worked with multiple clients on this, done 6 research initiatives, authored countless reports. And as you noted, in March, we came out with the book because we really thought it was important for us to share everything that we had learned to help elevate this topic within the industry so that everyone really can lean in and embrace this topic.
Oh, that's very, very important because when we think about universal designs, we tend to think about people with physical differences, and that's why we want to make this place accessible for them. But I believe that your book challenges the way we think about universal designs. Yes, I believe. Because my partner Pei Yan is trained to be a landscape architect. So
Yeah.
she's also interested in urban planning. She has some questions to ask you.
Yeah, I come across autism and ADHD friendly topic when I was studying urban planning in Hong Kong. I think the spatial context it really matters. Hong Kong has a higher density than New York and London, and
Yeah.
it's it's really high density and I think, and also I think the topic of neural inclusion was really less discussed by local professionals and local authorities or local academy, and it's very less emphasized that it leads to a lot of challenges during my study, and I've also done a lot of research. I not only think it's neuroinclusion in Hong Kong is it's very urgent. Because for example, like the noise pollution, light pollution, and for example, poor crowd control when people use transportation, this could create
Yeah.
huge challenge for autism, ADHD people to navigate, to fully enjoy the city. If the challenge is not very well addressed, it would even affect the fundamental health and well-being of individuals. So for me, I think it's a huge challenge, and but we are glad that a lot of initiative starts from smaller scale of event installation, interior design, and I believe it will have larger and larger effect and impact gradually through collaboration.
Yeah, I think that the topic is really starting to spread out a little bit more. It's not just about the interiors, it's about how we're designing our cities. And in different cities, you clearly have different challenges. You do have more densification, but you also then have some cultural nuances that might be a little bit different. And people kind of get acclimated a little bit to their surroundings. But it doesn't mean that all of those things, that assault of sensory stimulation that is coming at us, isn't overwhelming. And I think most of us have gotten really good at trying to block it out, but it doesn't mean that it's not negatively impacting our ability to function and to be successful and thrive. So when we were writing the book, one of my colleagues who is a landscape architect, who is autistic, was one of the reviewers who really looked at it and kind of gave me a lot of feedback. And I know that the landscape planners are really kind of coalescing around this topic and have really started to dive in. There's some research coming out of London about how we should be designing our parks. Our team is starting to think more about how do we design cities and urban planning so that we can navigate through those environments more successfully as well. And there are some spaces, like in Tokyo or in New York City or in Hong Kong, that just are an abundance of sensory stimulation. And so what's important is to try to create areas of some relief and or give people some balance. And that's hard when you don't have a lot of urban land that's available for parks, etc. But that means that we need to think about when you arrive in a building, is it easy to navigate? Is there a moment that you can just take a second to just kind of transfer from the chaos of being outside into that new environment? Are we creating areas for prospect and refuge? You can clearly see what's coming at you and you can kind of survey your surroundings. And if you need to take a break, you can. And are we embedding those little areas of delight or refresh throughout not only our buildings, but our cities? So whether it's small urban parks, whether it's we take some of the land in some of these buildings and we create a more public zone that has areas, those things are really, really important to help people thrive in these chaotic environments that are starting to become far more common today.
Right, right. And it's really important to globally communicate and share experiences, no matter it's good or bad, but it's important to um, learn from what not to do and what to be better. So um, I think that's what we're really happy to join. Why we're really happy to join the Neurodiversity Pride Day, because we share experiences all around
Yeah.
the world. And through Royal Town Planning Institute, I've seen a lot of global initiatives on bringing neuroinclusion at planning scale, and planner really should play the leadership role in coordinating all this. But somehow I feel like some professionals are a little bit lagging behind. But it's good that we're trying to there are people trying to bridge the gap. Yeah.
I will say that when we first started doing our research, I was actually surprised that the urban planning associations had some of the best information around universal design. But the challenge is we really need to go above and beyond universal design, because universal design tends to be very aspirational. We need to really think about how do we actually action that. And so putting together the steps, because right now, if I were to ask anybody, is your space designed to be neuroinclusive, or are your cities designed to be neuroinclusive? Nobody can really say confidently yes or no, because how are you benchmarking that? Like what is the standard that you're using to judge that against? And there isn't a collective set of guidelines or standards. And I think we're at a point where our industry has to come together to really help them determine what are those guidelines and standards, and how do we universally get that out to everybody so that we're all talking the same language. And then we can have a little bit more speed to efficiency, because then all the planners and all the architects and all the designers will understand the principles and know what it is we're striving to achieve.
For sure, for sure.
Yes. Yeah, I think you also raised the point, because knowledge itself is very important. And I mean, as you just mentioned, universal design is aspirational, but when it comes to be put into practice, universal designs can be a challenge. But in addition to the practicality of universal design, what do you see as the challenges for neo-inclusive designs to become reality based on your research?
I think number one, it's education and awareness is the very first thing. When we first started to talk about this 8 years ago, most people had no idea what we were even talking about. And I think now there's an awareness about what this is, but there isn't a lot of sophistication on many people's part about how to actually do it and to do it right. And I think that's, we have an opportunity now to really kind of narrow in and focus as an industry on how to do that. I think some of the other challenges are there's a lot of misconceptions out there. There's still a lot of stigmatism associated with this. About 50% of the people that are neurodivergent don't even know they are, because quite frankly, in certain cultures or in my generation, it was not diagnosed. It was just you were that slow kid, or you couldn't, you didn't understand things, or you were the hyper child that's sitting in the back of the classroom. And there was a lack of understanding. But now we have a much deeper understanding, and we need to educate people. So we need to continue to do the research. We need to understand how the built environment is really impacting people. We need to educate people about what that is and come together as an industry. And then we need to put together some guidelines and say, here's how we do it. Because once people understand this, it almost seems like this overwhelming task and they don't know where to start. And so we really have mapped out a process about how to do this. And we put all of this information in the book because it took us, 7, 8, 9 years of doing all of this research to come to this point. We've got to get everybody else up to speed really quickly. If that means we have to share everything that we've done so that the industry has can come in at a higher point, then we're happy to do that. And I think that's an important thing. We also are going around and doing a lot of presentations and sharing our insights and information with people. Because, if I asked a company right now, are you designing your space to be neuroinclusive, or is that something you want to consider? They don't even understand what that means, right? And so we have to educate the public and HR teams and organizations and leaders within companies to understand why this is so important and why they're already dealing with this. They're just not dealing with it well, right? Because in every organization, you have people that are neurodivergent. You just may not know it, and they may not be disclosing that.
But but I believe that you also raise another point. Education is important, and good, fair, transparent personal policies equally matter. But one thing that came to my mind was I was reading your book, and I believe that it was more than just a great idea. And then and then I also checked the examples of different companies trying to become neo inclusive. But quite often,
Yeah.
I find companies prioritizing autism as a part of their neurodiversity strategy. But not only from your book, but also from other areas, we know that neurodiversity is an umbrella. There are lots of conditions under neurodiversity. Sometimes and then some people argue that let's say you embrace neo-inclusive design. Let's say there is a wayfinding making it easier for people to navigate inside the office. But then when you have too many words, then people who are dyslexic or people who are ADHD may have challenges in understanding how to locate themselves for different locations. But yeah, but say in your research, how may we work together to try to balance between as being neo inclusive as possible and efficiency in operation?
So I think, first of all, there's a lot of conflicting needs. And so that's a challenge. And I think if we design to be neuroinclusive, one of the key principles here is giving people options, choice, and variety. There are so many spaces out there that have tried to standardize to the average person doing the average thing. And I don't know who that is anymore. And so we need to understand that we have a range of needs. We're not all the same. Some people are hypersensitive. Some people are hyposensitive. Some people like being in loud, buzzy spaces. Other people cannot handle that and need more quiet spaces. And so the only way that we can address that complexity of needs is to give people options and choice and to create different kind of zones in the space. And that sounds complicated, but it actually really isn't, because in most spaces you have naturally occurring louder areas and quieter areas. You have naturally occurring warmer areas and cooler areas. You have darker areas and brighter areas. And the way that we're designing space should enable and enhance that even one step further, so that people can really find that their environment that in the setting that is important for them, because there just is this variety of needs. And I think people wonder about, okay, well, is this going to be more costly, or is it going to take more time? I will tell you that designing intelligently does not cost any more money than designing stupidly. And it actually will save you money, because you don't have to redo it at the back end. And so there's this whole philosophy of, when we design for the extreme, we benefit the mean, meaning every single person benefits from those curb cuts. It's not just people in wheelchairs. It's people with strollers and roller bags and, bicyclists, etc. So incorporating these principles will not only help people that are neurodivergent, who might be just debilitated in some of these environments, it will also help people that are neurotypical and are probably being annoyed by the same things, but they're just muddling through it. So it really is beneficial for everyone.
Yes, yes. So yeah, you also raised a very, thanks for sharing this, because the other thing that comes to my mind is it's really about making our workplace as inclusive as possible. And then I remember that in your book, you try to reach beyond just mere space designs. You also talk about the personnel policy. So and then what you keep emphasizing is flexibility. Flexibility in the way that we lead talent, we manage talents, and also we also give them the space. Um, but some people may argue that, well, or even for lots of companies, what they think is space design, personal policy is personal policy. But you try to, but you, but in any case, you try to, I mean, what I agree with you is, um, Leo inclusion cannot be just the inclusion in one aspect. It needs to be integrated.
Yeah, I think it does. And I think, number one, organizations really have to be welcoming, right? So we really talk about the three-legged stool. And there's a lot of organizations right now that are focusing on onboarding and training and educating so that their organizations are welcoming, inclusive, but then they're putting people in environments that aren't supportive to them. And so that's like taking a freshwater fish and putting it in salt water, right? They're not going to thrive. And so what is the point of bringing people in only to put them in a really challenging environment where they're really going to struggle? So we have to not only address the operational side, we have to be able to address the environmental side and the built environment itself. And if that's all we're doing and we're not talking about the operational side, again, freshwater fish and salt water. But even if you do those two things, we are all so unique that you probably have to have some ability to have personal controls or adjustments or accommodations. And that's where people get really nervous because organizations think that this is just going to cost a ton of money. We're going to have to allow everybody to do their own thing. How are we going to control that? 56% of accommodations cost absolutely nothing. If I'm sitting next to somebody that is annoying me because they're a loud talker or they have a certain perfume that they're using or something is bothering me, getting up and moving to a different desk costs absolutely nothing. And a lot of the accommodations that we can make really are low to no cost. There is a huge percentage, like 37%, that have a one-time cost of less than $300. And I think that the question and the fear about what is this going to cost us or what are these accommodations going to do and how are we going to manage this are ill-placed because the real question should be, what is it costing you not to address these things right now? How many people in your organization are being negatively impacted by something that is impacting their well-being, their productivity, their focus, their engagement, their happiness? And all of those things are costing your company business. So this is not just about doing things that are right for a small percentage of the population. I don't think it's a small percentage. I actually think it's closer to 1 in 3, if not even 1 in 2. I think this is a huge percentage of the population, and every person benefits. So it's not just about that small, a small percentage, and it's not this huge cost. It's actually about creating environments and addressing the sensory processing and the cognitive well-being to maximize human performance so that everyone can thrive in the spaces we are creating, indoor, outdoor, cities, urban settings, suburbs, wherever they might be.
Yes, thanks so much. And Ping Yan has other questions to ask you.
Yeah, I think institutions, companies, workplace, these are like privately owned, managed, it has clear responsibility. But when it comes to larger spaces, I mean urban spaces, it's really hard to manage because it needs coordination. It's an effort from a lot of sectors. So for example, like noise pollution, light pollution, in some cities, like noise pollution can literally creating hearing loss like daily to a large population, and light pollution is creating health concern like for women, for men, about their all kinds of functions, body functions, and fundamental health. It's and creating sleep disturbance and annoyance and even more severe disease. These are like studied at a larger scale. So I wonder like how do you envision we can tackle like neuroinclusion challenges at larger scale and at an area where the responsibility is not like clearly assigned or divided. Yeah.
So we design spaces all over the world in every sector. We design airports, stadiums, every kind of public space that you can imagine. We're doing city planning in, around the world as well. And these principles really have been embedded in every single one of those sectors and those practices. And so let's just take an airport, okay, which tends to be really chaotic, overwhelming for almost every single one of us. I don't know anybody that thinks going to the airport is stress-free, right? So the journey, we have to think about the entire journey. We have to think about before you even leave your house and just planning for it. And so it's about being able to get online and see a map and to be able to plan it and take out the random variables and have some level of predictability. It's about understanding what it is that you're going to control to reduce that anxiety. It's about the arrival and making it more streamlined and simplified and not as chaotic. It's about when you get in the building and making it so it's clear where to go. I'm in airports all the time, and I feel lost 90% of the time in an airport. It's not clear. And so helping people make spaces more legible and enable wayfinding, and then to be able to identify and to be able just to kind of see, can I see what is ahead of me, or am I totally lost, right? So when they tell you, this is where your gate is, this is how you get there, this is how long it will take you, this is what you're going to encounter. And a lot of that has to do with information. And so technology can be a blessing and a curse. It can be a huge distractor. It can be one of those things as far as light. There's a lot of people that are having real issues with sleeping because of the light coming out of their computers or their televisions that they're watching right up to the time that they go to sleep. And then, of course, all those lights coming out of those devices are telling you, stay awake, right? And so it's not just our built environment, it's our technology as well. But it can also be a tool to help us navigate spaces, to help make spaces be more predictable and legible, to be a guide to help us get through. And then we need to think about, are we creating areas where people can either get that extra stimulation that they need, or they can have that calm and reprieve. And an airport is a great example. You have kids that have had to sit in a seat for 10 hours and have all this pent-up energy, and you've got people that are so anxious and stressed that they just need a moment of quiet. Right? Very different requirements, but we can accommodate both of those. We just need to understand the ranges that we need and to be able to create distinct zones for that. So one of the things I'm most proud of is our teams are incorporating this in hospitals, airports, their sports centers, justice facilities, the new cities that we're designing. All of these principles are being incorporated to help us navigate the world that we live in better.
Wow. From a professional point of view, I wonder how's the team formed? How do they approach like new topic? Like what kind of research they would refer to, and how do they testify the outcome? And yeah, I want to know more from a professional perspective.
So at HOK, we have 27 offices around the world and 1,700 people. It's one of the most extensive research groups you can have, because we believe every single practitioner who is working with our clients is doing real-time research, hands-on, every single day. And so it's leveraging that knowledge and that expertise and incorporating it into our practices and our policies. So our teams, when they realize and understand these principles, it's hard to go back and design without incorporating those once you understand how to do it right. right? It's like nobody asked us today to design a space that is physically accessible because we all just understand how to do it and it's embedded in the core of how we practice. Our teams have been exposed to this information and this knowledge. They have been educated about this. They have incorporated it into their projects to the point that they can't not do it now because it just makes so much sense. It's really smart design and it helps them make better decisions faster that benefit our clients. So whether our clients are asking for this or not, they are getting the knowledge of our team who now has a much better understanding about how to design spaces right from the inception for everyone. And so they're doing it. And when we are doing these projects, there are certain clients that are very specific about wanting to be more neuroinclusive. And we talk about multiple case studies of this in the book. And we can see the results either in the process being expedited and making it go more smoothly. Because when you lead with evidence and when you lead with science, this is not my opinion or what I think is cool and trending. I'm doing this because this is what's going to work for your organization or what you're trying to do. And when we can show that and prove that, then decisions are much more logical and are streamlined and go faster. And it makes sense, right? And so we also then are doing pre-occupancy and post-occupancy assessments. We've even done biometrics where our teams have worn some kind of a biometric tracker. And we can tell you that in the spaces that we are designing to be more neuroinclusive, we have a higher percentage of satisfaction across the board with sound, visual stimulation, visual clarity, ability to manage distractions, ability to find the right spots, just overall the benefits and the value of doing this. And there are multiple companies that have embraced this because it's not just good for the individual, it is good for the business. We have an entire section in the book about why this is good for businesses and businesses should be leaning into this. Besides the fact that it's just the right thing to do for people.
Right. From my personal experience, I think Hong Kong still has some way to go to make the neuro inclusion at scale, because for a lot of practitioners, the lack of awareness, certain data, and behavioral examination among population could be very limited in Hong Kong and also in mainland China. And it's really emerging, and people are just started to get to know the concept, and even they're navigating in between, for example, the DSM criteria of diagnosing and for example, we have our own working schedule, working culture, education culture. So the localization of a lot of criteria and how to localize an international standard to the very specific context. I do think it would be quite a lot of effort and capacity building and learning should be there. Yeah.
Well, shows like this are really important because it starts to get the message out there. I can't even count the number of presentations. It's in the thousands. And it's almost like we're taking one group of people at a time. We're taking them along on this journey, and then helping that word spread. But it is catching on, and all of a sudden in Europe and in America, this is really catching on fire. More so probably in the Nordics and in London. Probably the places that it's the most talked about. But America is right behind it, and so are the Australians. And I think it's kind of like we're unveiling something that all of a sudden just people realize has always been there. And it makes so much sense that it's just important. And I know the WELL standard, the International Wellbeing Institute, has really gained a lot of traction in Asia. We have partnered with them to identify things within the standard that are neurodiverse, inclusive, or friendly. And we have also helped them create and craft additional things to go into the standard to start addressing neurodiversity more complex, more comprehensively. So the more you all are talking about this, the more you can get the word out there. And it's not just, it's to the designers, it's to business leaders, it's to advocates, it's to HR groups, it's to employee resource groups. All of those groups we need to get in front of and be talking about.
Right, for sure. And I think also to the public sectors, public health sectors, policymakers, law enforcement, these are also very I think they are also should be our audience. Yeah.
Yeah, I think there was a big movement in a lot of governments. In the UK right now, the House of Lords has been talking about this topic. There are several people in the US Congress that have been talking about this topic. Not as much as we would like. We'd like that to be a lot more, but it's starting. And so starting to get that foothold in there, I think is really, really important. And when we can get those public advocates, that goes a long way to really get the message out there.
Right.
Yeah. So yeah, I think you also raised the point is really about several areas. So say it starts from education, it starts from experiments, it starts with showing showing the impacts to the community. Equally important is the work of industrial bodies as well as policy making. But for anyone who are new to neo-inclusive workplace design, other than reading your book, what recommendations would you like to make?
Yeah, I think again, I think if you want to start high level, and we have a whole list, we have 161 things from access to buildings and approach, et cetera, that we would recommend. But there are 13 things that just repeatedly keep coming to the top of the list. And a lot of them are best practices that we strive for regardless, whether it's access to quiet spaces, being able to sit off of a busy area, access to natural daylight, but the option to choose where you sit or to have some control over your space is important. Because if I sit you in an open desk that's on a main corridor with your back exposed and you're right across from a busy conference center and you're sensitive to sound and visual stimulations, your ability to function in that spot it's just been plummeted. It's just is non-existent, right? But if you can choose a space that might be off to the side, a little bit more shielded, then your level of being able to be productive and happy and engaged goes way up, right? So options, choice, and control. But we also need to understand that there are some people that need consistency. People that are OCD or just to get overwhelmed by too many choices, they might need to sit in the same spot every single day, just for lack of, just too much variety and too much choice can be overwhelming. So we need to be able to accommodate both. And we need things that are adjustable. We need, to address ergonomics in those spaces. We need to give people some sense of belonging, some connection. All of those things are really, really important just to help people be able to function. And then some people are going to have access to buzzy spaces. Other people want quiet spaces. So we need to create that balance.
Yes. Yeah. I mean, yes. I think you also. I mean, thanks for your ideas. I believe that it's really. I mean, it's really about learning from the best practices. And being interested in others. Shift our attitudes and try to understand neurodiversity from the strength-based perspective. And I got to say that time goes so quickly. Before we end this conversation,
Yeah.
may I ask you for the final words to speak to the audience, in particular for those coming from Hong Kong?
Yeah, I think one of the things that's really interesting to us is there's a lot of people that don't think they're impacted by this. They think this is somebody else. But when you really think about it, every single one of us knows someone that is neurodivergent. It is much closer to home than most of us think, whether we have children or spouses. And a lot of people during this journey have realized, wow, if my kids are neurodivergent, there's probably a pretty good chance that either myself or my spouse are, because this is hereditary and somebody in their family. And I did not start this whole journey I was on because of my own children who are neurodivergent. I started this because of a question that was asked. And it probably was about 2 or 3 years in when I really started to equate that my kids are going to benefit for a world that we create that is more inclusive. And when we talk about this, usually towards the end, a majority of the room understands this is impacting me personally or someone I know personally. And they hadn't necessarily equated it because we've just been so good at having to ignore this because we didn't have a lot of options or choice or information about this, but we don't have to do that. And we have an obligation to create spaces where everyone can thrive. And so the more we understand about this, the better we are. And so we are committed to continually learning, to sharing everything that we're learning to help, because all boats rise when the tide goes up. And that's really the philosophy we're embracing.
Thank you very much. And as you were sharing the tips, I could not think of stop thinking about some of the conversations that I had, especially with parents of neurodivergent kids. And then their work methods, eventually encouraging the colleagues to think about what they can do together to create opportunities, not only for the neurodivergent, not only for the parents of neurodivergent kids, but also for others. And I believe that this interview is not going to be the end of the conversations. It's just the beginning of a series of conversations, eventually leading us to think about what we can do and take actions.
Yeah.
And thank you very much for your time today, Kay. Your sharing is not only inspiring us, but also inspiring others.
Thank you very much for inviting me to join you guys today. Appreciate it.
Yes, my pleasure.